The House Select Committee investigating the January 6th Capitol insurrection has voted in favor of holding Jeffrey Clark in criminal contempt of Congress. All 9 members of the Democratic-led panel voted yes to recommending charges against the former Justice Department official. The measure now heads to the full House for a vote. Jeffrey Clark is the second person to face contempt charges for failing to comply with a committee subpoena. In October, the House voted to hold Trump ally Steve Bannon in contempt. He was then indicted on 2 federal counts. CBS News senior investigative correspondent Catherine Herridge joins me now for more. Catherine, we learned during the House meeting that Jeffrey Clark has agreed to appear again for his deposition after he first appeared for an interview in early November. Tell us more about what happened.
Well, Lana, this is one of the most sort of fascinating things about these committee meetings is that there's always something expected and then there's also something unexpected. So the expected part of it today is that the committee unanimously voted to take the Clark case, recommend contempt, and then cross that next threshold to the full House. So that's taking another step closer to a criminal contempt charge. But then we also learned in the course of the meeting that Clark's attorney has approached the committee and said that he is willing to appear for another deposition, but at that deposition, he's going to invoke his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. So that tells you a lot about some of the evidence that he's privy to. And the chairman of the committee said they'd like to see this happen as early as this Saturday. So my analysis of the situation is that the Select Committee has decided to keep the pressure on Jeffrey Clark to proceed down this road towards criminal contempt, at the same time putting a date certain on the calendar for him to appear and, if his lawyer is accurate, invoke his Fifth Amendment over the evidence and the conversations he was privy to after the November election.
So let me ask you a follow-up question about that, Catherine, because the Select Committee just voted to hold him in criminal contempt. That still has to go to the House for a full vote. As you say, his lawyers are making overtures to the committee. Do we know when the full House might hold their vote and how all of that is going to interact with
shake out, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, shake out. So I think you're right to always pay attention to the timeline because that tells you a lot about what the motivation is of the parties. We just had the Select Committee push ahead on contempt with Jeffrey Clark. They've also indicated that members of the House will have a couple of days if they want to make any changes or amendments to that. And then they led reporters to believe that they could vote on it as early as Friday. And just for some context, I mean, they're under some pretty tight timelines in the House because they're up against this December break. And then at the same time, the chairman said Saturday, we'd like to see him appear Saturday if this offer is good, that he will come again for a deposition. It would be his second appearance. But on some matters, he wants to invoke his Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination. So you're absolutely correct. We have these timelines really intersecting, which creates the maximum pressure on the witness in this case, the former Justice Department official Jeffrey Clark.
So tell us a bit more about Jeffrey Clark, who he is, why lawmakers are seeking this information from him.
Well, he's certainly not a household name, but after the November election, he was really elevated, and he came to a position where he had a lot of contact with then President Trump. And the allegation of the Select Committee members is that he wrongly used Justice Department resources to investigate these allegations of voter fraud as part of a larger effort to block the certification of the Electoral College. Clark so far has told this committee that he's felt that his conversations with the president, other advice he may have given the administration, is covered by executive privilege. Executive privilege is that shield that takes these communications and has them kind of off limits so the president can have candid conversations with his advisors. But he's also told the committee he thinks attorney-client privilege also applies in this case. So he's making the argument there's like a double privilege that shields these communications.
So how does this case then compare to the charges brought against Steve Bannon? And given what you're saying, does Clark being a former Justice Department official complicate things?
I'll take that in two parts. I think the case of Jeffrey Clark is completely different than Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon was a private citizen who had at one time been an advisor to former President Trump. Really, his argument that executive privilege applied to his communications with the president was a bit of a legal stretch. And he also shut the door on cooperating with this committee. It was very cut and dry, very black and white, which is, I believe, why the Justice Department made the argument for criminal contempt of Congress. Clark is a little bit different. He's had a limited cooperation, if you will. I mean, he did show up for one deposition. Now his lawyer's saying that he's going to show up for another one. He may invoke his fifth. He was a Justice Department official, so he has a better argument for executive privilege. But the problem is that other former Justice Department officials in the Trump administration have already talked to the Select Committee. So they also had communications with the White House. They also had access to the kind of deliberations that Clark is saying are so sensitive, but they felt free to go to the committee and cooperate, while Clark has argued that he is a special case. And I think that's where the Select Committee is trying to find that kind of sweet spot that the argument can't hold.
We'll have to see what he ultimately ends up doing.
It's going to be fascinating.
You know, I'm looking forward to sussing out some of those details. Catherine, thank you so much.
You're welcome.